Okay, so we are live on YouTube once again. Fiddle with these things. Ooh, have a little bit of water. Been quite a quiet kind of month in a way. Haven't been like super busy and stuff, and just busy moving house and getting used to like I've been living in community for nearly 17 years, and now I'm kind of 80% of the time outside in the city, you know, and it's kind of a transition to say the least. It's like, wow, now I'm in a flat with my girlfriend and just doing a couple of days back in the community. I caught up with the day change. Day change. I'm trying to work out what you mean, Luigi. Hey man, anyway. But like I was saying, yeah, now living in Brighton, getting a few little things together there. We're doing some seafront bioenergetics. It's kind of fun. Well, it's kind of fun if you're a masochist, basically, being down on the seafront with the wind and the storm and the rain and doing the bow and arch and the belly activation and stuff like that. I've had one or two people coming for it. I think it will pick up a few more punters when the weather and the light gets better. I mean, now it's 6 and it's still light here in the UK, so that's cool. Oh yes, used to be on a Tuesday. Now that I've got a new kind of rhythm to the week, it's been easier for me to shift this to a Thursday. You get to see the same old scenery in the background as it used to be with my with my streams as well. But yeah, I understand what you mean now, Luigi. No worries. But yeah, it's kind of fun. I'm starting Project Man evenings as well, so I'm going to do one of those a month or so, something like that, and get some nice, you know, bioenergetics and confrontational group process going for the guys, and that's down in Brighton, and I'm planning one on Monday, April the 1st. So I'm just I'm plugging in a bit to the kind of men's groups that are going on around Brighton. Particularly the No One Mr. Nice Guy group, which it's not totally run by a guy called Harvey, American guy called Harvey, but he's a really nice guy and he runs a kind of meetup based around it, and that's kind of a cool thing that he's doing. So if you're in the Brighton area, check him out and check me out. If you want to get down on the seafront when the weather is shit and do some bioenergetics just to show you don't care about the weather, then I'm the man to come and speak to. Me and a guy called John are down there quite a bit. And let's do some questions. Have you read any books on bioenergetics? Really, I don't read so many books, non-fiction stuff. I listen to books a bit, but most of the books on bioenergetics written in English, I mean, there aren't really very many really about bio, you know. Alexander Lowen wrote a lot of kind of semi-philosophical kind of or theoretical kind of dissertations about bio, but he actually only really did one book where he put some exercises in it, and I'm in the process of writing my own book at the moment, which will be more sort of factual information and structure, posture, what each posture does roughly and that kind of thing. So there isn't very much. If you speak Italian, there's a little bit more, because bioenergetics is quite popular. Well, also Spanish or Portuguese, because bioenergetics is quite popular in South America and in around the Mediterranean, or anyway in the European part of the Mediterranean, I should say. So there's a little bit more in those languages, but there's a real dearth, you know, like a real lack of books on bioenergetics. And you know, I haven't really bothered with most of Alexander Lowen's books, to be honest, because they're all a bit theoretical and old really these days. No disrespect, but I kind of I've been developing quite a lot my own style recently, and I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. And because I have like regular classes that I teach here at the centre, I get to experiment a little bit and try different things. And we've been doing some quite strong back release in the last couple of weeks, and I need to make some videos about that. But it's potent fucking stuff, you know. I mean, I'm constantly reminded, you know, about 4 years in with this bioenergetic journey. I mean, I've been doing it probably in total about 20 years, but with this kind of real part of the journey, I'm constantly reminded just how much more there is and how much release can happen. You know, it's like it's really been overlooked somewhere in the whole thing with therapy. It's really been overlooked really been overlooked, you know. And there's like, I'm like fucking constantly amazed how much more potential there is in this, you know. I don't feel like I'm doing much more than, I think I'm doing more than scraping the surface, but there's definitely a lot more, and I'm constantly finding stuff that's new, and I'm like amazed, like, whoa, I'm getting some real serious release here. And you know, running my classes is nice. JW, hi, or hey JW, been enjoying the hip thrust. Done it once, but noticeable effect, mostly keeping the bow and arch and a bit of, yeah, this Cobra dog is good, man, eh? Shit, that's good, you know. But you have to get the bioenergetic Cobra properly, as I'm calling it now, to distinguish it from the kind of yoga Cobra, you know, where your feet are on the floor. But fuck it, you know, once you get it to the point where your body starts to shake in those 4 poses, I mean, your back starts to release like crazy, you know. It's like, really, it's just fucking let it go. Yeah. Hip thrust got a lot of, yeah. It's sexual energy. It's mad. We were doing that. We did about 20 minutes of it on the Brighton seafront last Tuesday, and it was stormy as fuck, you know. The wind was howling. It was madness, you know. But I mean, just kept going, and people walking past wondered what the fuck we were doing. The cops even slowed down for a bit. So you've got a couple of guys just doing these weird hip pelvic movements in front of an old statue on the Brighton seafront. But we didn't get arrested, thankfully. We weren't facing each other either, so we didn't think it was some kind of gay thing. But it was a bit of a weird situation. But I mean, it's powerful stuff, you know. These reflexes in the body are so shut down, and this primitive response to kind of take, you know, to get what you want from life. It's like, it's very submerged in a lot of people, and you know, they're very scared of it in a sense, you know, this feeling like, hey, I have the right to get my needs met. But this exercise is the best one I know personally, to really start to reactivate that and give you this feeling like, hey, I've got a right to be alive. I have a right to exist, and I have a right to get what I need. You know, it really it gets it moving. You know, it gets it moving. That pelvic thrusting, it's good. I'm noticing the arch. I'm feeling a lot of tension around my shoulder blades in the arch. Okay, leaning forwards. Okay, well, that's interesting. Mostly people get it in the bow more if you really stretch your arms up. But you know, feeling that tension is the first step to releasing it. You know, it's hard to release something that you can't really feel. It can happen, but it's harder. It's harder. And you know, it's good to feel the tension. It's good to feel it and become aware of it. At times, I've been like, Jesus, I'm so fucking tense. You know, and before I was living in a kind of, I guess I was just living in a kind of you know, a delusional state, really. Oh yes, I'm fine, and then everyone starts like that mostly, you know. You start with I'm fine, and then it's like, Jesus, I've got all this shit going on, you know. And then you can retreat back into I'm fine, and keep taking the drugs or the booze or whatever, or you have a choice to start, okay, now I want to start to deal with it. For me, the bow is usually the hardest. Yeah, I'm finding a lot of people in the last, it was always harder for me to do the arch. And with a lot of clients I had in groups, it seemed like the arch was harder for people. And in the last couple of months, just seems to be a load of people coming to me with like issues doing the bow, you know, people I do one-to-ones with or come to groups. It's interesting. There's just seems to be, I don't know what it is, but it's just, I guess it's just random, you know. But certainly the bow can really stir up a lot for people. Yeah, all around the mid upper back trapezoids and neck. Yeah. Well, it's good to be aware of that tension, you know, and you can really stretch into that with these shoulder exercises in the bow, or just really lifting your arms right up in this, you know, upper body stretch, and trying to breathe through it. You know, at some point the tension and the pain's really extreme, and you keep on trying to breathe through, and hopefully you get through. And if once you don't succeed, then you just try again the next day or a week later. Neck dangly, head dangly, dangle. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing the arch, the neck should be loose, so your head is just kind of, and your arms and shoulders the same, basically. Are there bioenergetic exercises for the immune system boost? I am doing mostly bow and arch, and recently the No More Mr. Nice Guy. For immune system boost, the main thing that I know of, you know, that because it's not, I mean, mostly in bioenergetics, what you're doing is looking at certain muscle groups in the body, and then you're looking at certain patterns of emotional holding, basically from childhood, avoiding trauma or re-experiencing traumatic feelings, or, you know, conditioning, where you're trying to you know, control your personality, over-regulate it basically, and that creates holding. So the immune system is a little bit, you know, that's much more in the body and in the cells. But what I do a lot of is cold showers, you know, in the morning, which often feel like you really don't want to fucking do it. But it does seem to make you very healthy. You know, it means like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like a cold coming on these days. And I even just go for a 5-10K run on the seafront, you know, wearing just a vest and a pair of shorts. People looking at me like I'm mad, and then come back and have a cold shower. And it just seems to just stop the cold completely. Like it just gives up, you know, it's like, the immune system, I think the cold showers are the best thing I know. I don't know if there's scientific evidence for that, but I mean, it just seems to, really, it makes sense as well that your body has some kind of shock, you know, a manageable shock that kind of mobilizes, you know, its own defenses. Makes sense to me personally, the way I think, you know, because if you imagine you've got a little army fighting for you, you know, if they're all kind of old and kind of collapsing, you know, you kind of think, well, is this army really going to be able to kick it? But if they have regular threats and they have to jump up and deal with the threat, of course, it keeps them on their toes a bit more. And so, you know, maybe that isn't the most medical way of seeing the immune system, but I'm sure in analogy, it does work a bit like that. And I've heard that it needs regular threats to basically keep itself out there kicking and keeping infections out or stopping your body from getting ill, you know? So that makes sense. Started to stretch more at the out breath, and that makes a difference. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's always good. It's always good. Just as you breathe out, you can always deepen any exercise. You learn that from doing a bit of yoga, eh? They always say stretch a bit on the out breath, but they're more usually breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, generally. But yes, it does make a difference, you know. On the out breath, there is that moment where you can just stretch a little bit more. Thank you for putting that in. Cold thermogenesis, there is scientific evidence, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it seems like, you know, there's this thing now, I know in Liverpool Street in London, they've got this kind of chamber. It costs £90 to have a go, and they put your body in there at minus 170 centigrade for like 3 minutes or something, you know. Like, what the fuck? I haven't tried it yet, but maybe I should give it a go. It is kind of expensive, but maybe I'll wait till they get a bit cheaper. But it's really, yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I think all these kind of Premiership football players do it. And someone was telling me or something, there's a guy, black guy, I think, who's like 34 years old, and he's the oldest guy in the Premiership. But to keep himself super fit, part of what he's doing is like he's doing this cold treatment, you know, this cold therapy over in Liverpool Street. And, you know, take your body down to like minus 160 for 3 minutes, which must send it into fuck knows what it does when your head is obviously outside the chamber. But like, yeah, I mean, apparently it just massively boosts you. Yeah, I do cold showers actually. Okay, you're doing that already. Wim Hof method is interesting. Yeah, interesting guy. Interesting stuff. I mean, when I'm doing cold training, my focus is a bit more, you know, being a therapist, getting in the body. You know, Wim's a bit more of a spiritual teacher. I'm more of a therapist, really, and workshop leader. So my emphasis is getting in the body. And sometimes with these breath techniques, you know, they take you a little bit out of the body. You know, I don't know, but it's not so much my thing personally. But I mean, he seems like a pretty amazing guy. Certainly when I see him on YouTube and TED Talks and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot in bioenergetics. Hey, I'm kind of slowly knuckling down to getting my book together and to create a bit more of a teaching course as well, which hopefully will come together over the next couple of years so that people can kind of learn at least, you know, there's a lack of teachers. And the truth is it's difficult because some of the techniques stir up a lot of feeling. You know, you can't just kind of fuck around with it. So you need a bit of experience to. I know someone who was running a teacher training for a while, and then they dropped it. Basically, they stopped because they felt that people were coming out without really the adequate experience to hold the space. You know, it's one thing to know the exercises and all the points of the exercises, but when you're really working with the emotions very deeply and with repressed emotions as well, you know, it isn't straightforward. It isn't straightforward. Liana, as I've been doing bio for some time now, I've noticed that I'm more aware of my breathing during stress situations. Yes, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I'm the same. You know, I start to, it's kind of like there's a little wave that just travels through the body all the time naturally. And when I'm aware of it, then I can kind of tune into that and not get into my habitual kind of daily stress patterns, you know, being on the internet and stuff like that. Anyway, let's have a little look. How can you use bioenergetics to get rid of negative thought patterns? The thing is, a couple of things to see. You see, is like, yes, from an ego level, we'd like to get rid of certain, you know, negative thought patterns for sure. But the reality is it doesn't really work like that. You know, in truth, it's quite a deep question. You know, it's quite a deep question, and it's got different angles to it. And of course, a lot of people are busy. A lot of people are busy with it. You know, but one thing is with negative thinking is that you can't really push it away with your mind. You know, it doesn't really work. It just kind of goes a little bit. Even if you succeed, it goes into the background and just gets reinforcements and comes back like a motherfucker, as many people who are a bit older and have been in this scene for a while will tell you. You know, so you can't so much get rid of it. Something to understand is that a lot of negative thinking, part of where it comes from is because there's so much trauma held in the body, and the body's been so conditioned. You know, our personality, we've been controlling our personality so much. And to achieve that, the brain has to repress a lot. And that repressed stuff exerts a charge on the psyche. And sometimes that leads us back into negative situations a lot. You know, habitual fixations, fixating on negativity. So in bioenergetics, what you're trying to do is get the charge out of the body. And then it should be much easier just to go into the positive, because a lot of the time it's a bit more complex. And I've done some talks on it and stuff, but it's a bit complicated to go in, or quite a long speech to go into right now. But essentially, when there's a big charge in the muscle system from a lot of repression, the brain becomes hardwired to a degree to keep trying to go into negativity. And the higher part of the mind, the neocortex up here and the prefrontal cortex, they want to go into positivity, at least if you've kind of developed a bit. But this charge in the body keeps pulling you back into the shit. And so the way around this dynamic is to get the charge out of the body. And then essentially your midbrain, the older part of your brain, the emotional brain, doesn't need to keep trying to drag you into the shit situations. Another thing to understand with negative thinking, especially if it's kind of self-limiting thinking and thinking that you can't do it, you can't make it, these kind of thoughts, is that they're defensive in nature. They're there to protect you. And they may have been necessary when you were a kid in some degrees. You know, some people have childhoods where there's a lot of violence or stuff going on around, and you learn to just keep your head down, you know, physically sometimes as well as, you know, psychologically, just keeping yourself safe. And so negative thinking can be part of that. Negative thinking is kind of a broad category, eh? Some stuff which is really heavy and some which is just self-limiting. Yeah, I've noticed when laughter comes up during bio, there's an immediate anger response, etc. Okay, interesting. Yeah. You mean when you start to laugh, then you get pissed off as well? Well, it's just, you know, we're like an onion, and there's layers of feeling in there. There's layers of feeling in there, you know. The best way to, you know, if you really want fast progress with this stuff, is to come to a workshop, you know, come to a workshop where, you know, when I've got a workshop space and we're a group, we can also go into some of the feelings as well. Like you can do some bioenergetics when you have a chance to really fucking scream it out, you know, and go into some of the anger and the pain on an emotional level. You can't so easily do that just on your own. It's not really very easy. It needs some level of guidance, you know, by people who've been in the scene for a while, like myself. But that's the way to really speed it up. You know, that's the way to really speed process work up. And, you know, it's also the case that it takes a while, hey? It takes a while to get stuff out of the body, you know. It requires quite a commitment for most people. And, you know, it requires a kind of quite a deep maturity in a sense to be willing to say, okay, these shit feelings are coming. And instead of, you know, avoiding them in some way, I'm just going to feel them at a bodily level. You know, that takes maturity. And I still see myself, even at 58, it's quite often a bit immature with feelings and sometimes struggling to own things. I've been keeping it contained when practicing alone, not going into catharsis. Would love to go workshop. Yeah, man, I hope, you know, the money comes together and you can come for something. I've got, you know, stuff going on most months. Basically, stuff going on most months, either in Leela or in Brighton. So Dorset or in Brighton, essentially, you know. And it's a great opportunity to really have a whole weekend at it, you know, and to ask questions and all that kind of thing. I do enjoy teaching. Yeah, what have I got coming on? Bioenergetics Day in London is coming up in about a week and a half's time. Not this weekend, but Sunday the 24th, I believe it is. And then I got Project Man evenings. I'm doing some outside bioenergetics for free. You know, you have to be willing to brave the Brighton seafront. But if you're in that area, Friday nights, usually I'm doing a 1 hour class, and I might start doing some other sessions as well. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm thinking about it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that won't be like straight up bio, you know. That's more group therapy with a strong sexual angle to it, you know. And it's a different kind of thing. But it's also a great workshop, and we will do some bio in there. I'm not the only person leading that. There's 4 of us co-leading. So, you know, that'll be an amazing week. So trying to get another job at the moment so I can save up to fly over for a workshop or two. Oh, look for the number. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, I enjoy creating content. You know, I actually need to. What I really need to do is to do more of these 1 hour things, because I'm teaching 1 hour sessions a lot. You know, and it's not really possible to film them because there's always someone who doesn't really want to be filmed, and that's fair enough, and find themselves on YouTube. So I need to kind of do them again afterwards sometimes and just get used to filming that and putting them up, because then you have sessions where you can just think, okay, I've got an hour now and I can follow something and it's going to give me a real release, you know. So I'm trying to step up a bit with the content and just do more and more bodywork stuff, which is what people want, really. How do you get your mind to initially break out of a resistance when doing bioenergetics? It's like it doesn't want you to grow. Well, there's a part of the mind, you know, because if you've even tuned into this channel, if you're even, you know, looking at bioenergetics, obviously there's a big part of you that really wants to change and is really up for it, you know. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't, you know. You'd be chilling out somewhere, flicking and surfing around through multiple things and doing what other people do, you know. And yes, then there'll be another part of your mind which is trying to protect you, in a sense, from the old feelings, a bit like a soldier fighting the war 20 years after it's over, you know. One of the things you can do with resistance, if you know kind of what your resistance is to really make it physical, you know. When something you can, you know, if you just feel yourself, your mind very whiny and complainy, you know, and oh, I don't want to do it, and I don't want, just stand up and start to put those sentences out, verbalize them, you know. Oh, I don't want to fucking do it. Just move your body around, because when you make any form of mental resistance, you know, negative thought patterns or self-limiting thought patterns physical, you know, it starts to create change. It starts to create change. Another thing you can do is this shoulder exercise that I put on there quite a bit. I was doing it a lot about 4 or 5 months ago, a bit earlier maybe, where you lift your shoulders up and throw them down. This is like a teenager kind of protest movement, you know. You see teenagers doing this, like, get off my back, dad. This kind of feeling. And this is a great exercise to kind of break through resistance, because again, you really make this kind of protesting voice inside physical, you know. Physical. It's difficult, man. It's difficult, you know. A lot of people are trying to, in this day and age, are trying to develop on their own in their flat, and I absolutely commend and support that. But of course, resistance is the main thing. You know, in the old days, everyone came to groups. You know, you came to groups and you had to sign up for like 9 groups in a row, and you just had to come. Other participants and the bosses would be on you otherwise if you didn't come, you know, because at some point along that journey, there will be resistance, and your mind will think of very good reasons why you don't want to come, totally convincing you, you know. And that is the point when you really need to go to the group and move, you know. So when you get a bit more familiar with this stuff, and maybe you already are, you know, it's like you start to really understand your resistance and you use it as a bit of a signpost. So it's like, okay, I'm getting these resistant thoughts again. Actually, something is probably going on deeper. I just need to really do some bio and really just breathe and feel my body. And then you can actually start to use the resistance as a signpost, you know. It's an ongoing challenge, you know. It's an ongoing challenge. Simple as that. Great question. Let's have a little look. I don't think anyone else has put a question down there. Yeah, if anyone's got a question, you know, just stick it out, go for it. I'm cool with it. I like to support people to step up, and you know, the reality is people watch these streams afterwards and often people tell me, hey, I was really happy that guy wrote a question or that woman wrote a question because it really applied to me as well, you know, and I could, it was good for me. You know? What do you think can cause energetic blocks? Well, I mean, I guess there's a number of kind of potential causes. The kind of more obvious ones are trauma, essentially. You know, when something very emotionally powerful happens to us, you know, and it's too much for us to express the feelings in the moment, we repress it and it becomes like a block inside, which then gets reinforced as our ego kind of grows around that and doesn't walk through that doorway inside of us, you know. That's probably the main one. The secondary one is basic conditioning, you know, social conditioning from the outside and from our own mind, where we try to understand the world and who we have to be to get our needs met, basically. That also causes blocks. And of course, you know, if you're into spirituality and chakras or karma, you know, maybe they're coming from another level as well. But because my take on it, you know, is that because we are, you know, existing in this physical realm, that's the realm where you can most work on it, you know, and that's the direct route. You know, bioenergetics is one of the main direct routes in, you know, certainly people can do chakra work and stuff like that. And maybe you clear something over time. I was involved with a spiritual school once, a Kabbalistic school, and they were very honest. They said to clear stuff out, you need to be a Kabbalist for at least 3 to 5 lifetimes. I thought, bloody hell, you know. He said that's the actual truth. He said, you know, spiritual schools won't really tell you this, or they don't know, or they're so disconnected from reality they don't know. But you know, it's like that I felt was the truth, you know. And it's like I thought, well, you know, I don't really want to have to be 3 to 5. What if I miss one of the lives in the middle or something? Then I won't have cleared it out. And you know, if you really work on a physical level, you can create a lot of change. So I've still got a little troll here. Is there a specific way I should be sitting when trying to consume knowledge, like when I'm listening now or watching a video? Well, I guess you just have to try and be open, you know, just be open to what's happening. And just, I guess that's all I do, you know. I kind of find myself, you know, I start listening to something, I get into it, and my mind, it's very easy for me to get distracted, or I don't know, there's something internal going on. And so I have had over the years, you know, I never had ADD or something like that, but I do recognize that sometimes my attention can wander off quite easily, and then I'm not fully receptive to what I'm listening to. So, you know, something I'm still learning a lot, something I'm learning to do is to really try and just do one thing at a time. You know, when it's something where I need to take something in, just try and be really present with it, one thing at a time. And then when I'm not to overdo it as well, because then I'll just kind of space out somewhere. But, you know, my real experiences of learning come when I try to do one thing at a time. Okay. Dum, 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 dum. Oh, we got a little troll here. Anyway, something about Donald Trump, who I quite like, actually. Is there a specific way I should be sitting when... Sorry. Elliot Hull says that diet also causes blocks through inflammation. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, fair play. You know, I mean, I'm not, you know, if you saw my diet, you probably, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of theories around, hey. There's a lot of theories. I mean, and the phrase energetic block is kind of tricky because, you know, if you're hard into science and stuff, you're going to say, what do you mean by energetic block? You know, I mean, so it's kind of a bit tricky, you know. With bioenergetics, you know, it's working on patterns of holding in the muscles, you know. So, you know, that makes it fairly physical, I think. But, you know, Elliot's a good guy. And, you know, there may certainly, you know, you can have certain diets which stop you from feeling, you know, or maybe stop you from feeling is not really the best way I could put it. But, you know, when we turn to comfort food, it's often because there's a feeling in our body we don't like and we just want to pad it out a bit or comfort ourselves with food. And it's not so terrible, you know, but like it's good to be aware of it, you know, and to start to monitor it and maybe reduce it a bit here and there. When I do triple warmer or triple opener, I think you mean, or hip thrust, there is this protective layer that tries to block that base level power from coming up. No energy weak, any comment? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can also be in a sense that when you start to do these exercises, you actually fall a little bit into an energetic gap inside of us, you know, and then it's good to just breathe and keep going. You know, if your mind is telling you you feel powerless, just allow that feeling, but keep going, keep going. You know, even if you're not pushing it to the max, keep going. And what will happen is you'll move through it. You know, one very confrontational exercise I lead in the group room a bit is when you have to do face-to-face anger with other people and really scream it out. And it's very common for people to experience a certain period of time when they feel they're screaming and they're really powerful, and then suddenly they feel utterly powerless, like the person could just overwhelm them in a second if they wanted to. And then some of those people will keep going, some will just collapse on the side, and you have to get them up and get them to keep going, and then it kicks back in. You know, it's like there are energetic gaps inside of us, and stuff like the triple open or hip thrusting, you know, it's quite an intense exercise. And so it's pushing into those gaps inside of us where we need more awareness. So when that happens, it's actually quite good in a sense. You just need to keep breathing and feeling, and just stay with it. You know, even if you can't do it quite as full on as you were a minute ago, just stay with it. Just stay with it. It's suggesting I tried the Boko download. Really felt it opening up my legs. Felt quite sad actually for a few days, not in a particularly bad way. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's how it is. We hold sadness inside of us. We hold anger inside of us. And with these exercises, what's so great is it kind of allows sometimes us to process things at a level which we can accept it. You know, it's not at such a level that we're hurled off course or we go in reactions. There's just an underlying feeling there, and we can stay with it, and something processes. You know, that's great. Trauma is like shit, so we have to clean up someone else's shit that has come into our life. Well, you can look at it like that, man, but like, you know, the reality is, yeah, you know, I mean, I got traumatized to fuck when I was a little kid, you know, but I also recognize that was quite good in the long run, because I think with someone with my personality, you know, if I hadn't had a lot of trauma, by now I'd probably be dead, basically, from just cancer or something, you know, that people get, or otherwise just living in some, I don't know, with some shit job in some shit house on the outskirts of London with a wife and 2 kids, and a wife I probably hadn't had sex with for 3 years or whatever, you know. But because I had so much trauma and my social life was so fucked up, when I started to do something about it, you know, I was drawn to go really deep, you know, so it created a phenomenal amount of change in my life. So in a sense, you know, I'm quite grateful to the trauma, really, because it's given me a fucking good life. I mean, the first half wasn't so great, but, you know, that ramped me up to make change and to keep going for it. So I have a bit of a different take on trauma these days, you know. It's not as straightforward as it seems, and something you learn when you work with trauma a lot in your own body and in, you know, and you're supporting other people, is that essentially that, you know, a lot of it is also to do with our own inbuilt reactions to things. You know, my mother left me when I was a little baby, and somewhere from that, later down the line, just as a little kid, I learned to kind of withhold, you know, as a form of protest, you know, and that was like probably a genetic pattern in me, you know. So that created a lot of drama in my life, particularly in my love life, you know, and so I had to overcome it at some point. But I could recognize that it wasn't really the traumatic events that had happened, but more my reactions to them. And that wasn't to blame myself, you know, and put myself down, just a little kid, you know. But the reality is, you know, we have to take responsibility for what we're carrying around, you know, otherwise, you know, it's always, I used to love blaming people. I used to love it. Blame my dad, blame my mum, blame society, blame authority. Tons of fucking people I could blame. It was great, you know. In a sense, it was great. But of course, nothing really shifted for me, and I was totally disempowered in my own life and kind of fighting shadows all the time, you know, in a sense, in an analogy, you know. And as I started going to group therapy run by this tough little American guy, Varesh, great guy. And he said, you know, the most powerful position you can take is to take responsibility for everything that's ever happened to you. And I thought, what the fuck? You know, I've got like 100 people I can blame for myself, you know. Why should I want to give that up? But I came to understand, you know, after a while, I came to understand that, you know, if I could do that, just slowly, progressively, in an adult and mature fashion, a lot would change. And that's what I've been slowly practicing over the last 15 years, really. Okay, let's have a little look. What do you think of mixing and matching exercises and mixed and pelvic thrust this morning? One to opening. Yeah, I think especially when you're a bit experienced, it's okay. You know, it's really okay. You know, the danger with all of this kind of stuff is when you don't, you know, when you start anything, you know, you have to be, if you want to be a teacher of something at some point, how it's always appeared to me and worked for me personally is I had to really follow someone for a while, you know, and just totally do what they were doing. And then at some point, either they'd say to me, you can do it now, or I felt confident to go out on my own, you know. So it's just when, you know, when someone asks that question, they've got to be a bit experienced, so they know they're not in avoidance with the mixing and matching. They're just experimenting with themselves, and they're quite committed and disciplined. You know, there's no problem with it. You know, it's your space anyway. It's just you know, and particularly with something like the triple opener and the pelvic. I mean, one grew out of the other. I was teaching with triple opener for quite a while. That's one of my exercises. And then at some point I thought, you know, I won't do the shoulders this time. I'll just start up with the pelvis, which was a standard bioenergetic exercise anyway. And I'll add a grunt to it. Usually with the old pelvic thrusting, what you do is like a wah sound, a more sexy kind of wah, wah, wah. You know, I used to do it facing women. It was great, you know, in the group room. It's make you horny as fuck. But like, but that's how the pelvic thrusting came about. You know, I already knew that exercise from bioenergetics and group therapy, and then I started to add it in with the belly work a bit, you know, and then I found it had this kind of primal quality to it. This kind of, yeah, I just want to take something. Yeah, I have a right to get something, you know, to it. So that's where that came from. But it is quite close to the triple opener. So, you know, your body, you or your mind is pretty intuitive, you know, and you can feel that somewhere. And it's fine to mix them around a bit. This is a little bit awkward to admit. I'm not sure if you can answer. I'm addicted to masturbation. I was wondering if there's that can help me get a handle on that. I mean, it's difficult, you know. I was pretty addicted to it for a long time, really, and still can be at times. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of old now and shit, you know. But like, I mean, something you could try is some pelvic exercises, you know. Pelvic exercises. I mean, the thing that's always worked for me is just to get a girlfriend. Basically, that was the bottom line. Because, yeah, you know, that at least helps a bit, hey, and makes it more healthy. I think one thing is not to beat yourself up for it too much. You know, I mean, a lot of people have stuff around here, and if you've got a lot of energy, you know, you're also going to have a lot of sexual energy. I'll show a famous spiritual master who talked about that. You know, it's like, if you don't, he used to say something like, if you don't have energy to be a bad guy, you know, then you don't have energy to be spiritual, because it's the same energy, you know. So don't beat yourself up for it in any way. Just accept it as a fact. But I don't know one stretch that you can do to stop it, to be honest. You know, as you get more in your body, I mean, I think my main approach would be, you know, to try and go out there and get the partners you want, you know, and to do that. Because when I was masturbating a lot, it was always kind of around fantasy women and stuff. And, you know, I wasn't getting enough sex, and I wasn't getting it with the women I wanted to get it with, basically. And when I started to do a lot of therapy, you know, then that started to change a bit, you know, and then my sex life became more exciting, and the need to masturbate to get that pressure out kind of dwindled a bit. And in certain schools of Tantra, for example, you know, you'd go through a phase of just not masturbating at all, just to allow the pressure to build up and kind of clean you a little bit, was the theory, you know. So I don't know if those are clues or useful in some way, but well done for being brave and putting the question out, man. A lot of people have that question, don't worry. A lot of people have it. But I don't know one stretch. Some pelvic bumping and stuff like that can kind of help. I guess at the end of the day, it's trying to distribute some of that sexual energy away from the head and the balls, really, you know, and get it flowing around the back too. But I mean, it's not easy, hey? It's not easy. It's not easy. When you got the energy, you know, when you got a lot of energy and it's going in that direction, it can drive you a bit nuts, and you just get addicted to releasing it, you know. I've seen I've seen different people try and answer this question. I think I was watching those guys, the Hodge twins, once answering it, and because most of their audience is like late teenage, early 20s, young men. And of course, a lot of those guys are probably cranking them out multiple times a day. And, one guy was asking something like, I've heard that you can do Tantra and never masturbate again. And the Hodge twin said something, don't worry about that shit, man. Just keep wanking away, don't feel bad about it or something, And there is the truth in that, it's like, yeah, it's releasing pressure. You're throwing your energy out rather than keeping it in, but it's also not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. It's important you don't put yourself down for it, certainly. Okay. If anyone's got a question, then do feel free to put it out. Do feel free to put it out. What am I up to? I'm back off to Brighton tomorrow. Nice 1 hour bioenergetic session in the evening. See if anyone's mad enough to come. I mean, it's getting to a point where it's nearly light at 6:30. I guess a couple of weeks' time it'll be light, and then I think once the spring comes, I'll get a few more punters. I quite enjoy it because it's quite a male, mostly guys that come in, and we go out for a beer afterwards, stuff like that, have a bit of fun. So I enjoy that kind of stuff, I've been going a bit to, sometimes I go to these No More Mr. Nice Guy groups, which are meetup groups, and people say to me, I know you on YouTube, you're not a fucking nice guy. I said, well, I just like to come and hang out with the guys a bit, really, I still have some nice guy traits anyway, but, it's a bit like that movie, what's it called, famous movie, Fight Club, where this guy's going to all these self-help groups just because he wants to connect with people, doesn't have testicular cancer or whatever, but just wants to connect with people. It's I get a bit like that, so nice to go and see a different scene, even if you don't have those problems. Any tips for getting into learning stuff? Got myself a job I like, getting pretty disciplined with bio and other exercises, but really slack about learning stuff. You mean like learning stuff for your job, how to do things and that kind of stuff? Both for work stuff and personal stuff. Want to learn programming and jazz guitar. Well, man, it's like if you're getting disciplined with the bio, then you can get disciplined with that stuff. You just got to, I mean, it's an ongoing challenge for me. I've been meant to be writing this book on bio for like the last bloody year, and I've only just now really started to discipline myself to do it. You just got to somewhere. With me, when I don't do something I know I want to do, slowly a little voice builds up in my head, beating me up and putting me down. And that's also not good for me. So I just have to fucking do it, basically. And then I kind of feel good. And what works for me is more like, just assigning a certain amount of time for it. Ideally, I guess, in the morning, because then you've got it out of the way and then you can feel good. If okay, I did it. I did 20 minutes of learning jazz guitar or whatever, and 20 minutes of learning my programming or whatever, just to set a realistic challenge each day and try to stick with it. Create yourself a schedule for it, but it's realistic. It's not pushing yourself so hard. You're not going to be able to complete it, and then you get to beat yourself up for a bit. You don't want to be doing that stuff. That's the setup, But just something that's practical, tangible, realistic. Set yourself a schedule and just do it. Because it is like life is like that. Life is like that. When I was a kid growing up, I always thought like everything was kind of built in somewhere. The good-looking guys got all the women. I would get whatever I had, what was left over. The good-looking guys who were really special got all the fucking good jobs and got to be the alphas, got all the good jobs and were earning tons of money. That was my mindset growing up. And now in my late 50s, it's very clear to me that you can get anything you fucking want as long as you're prepared to work for it in an adult, slow and progressive manner. It's not such a sexy, exciting piece of advice. I ain't going to make any movies about that, but it is the truth. It is the truth. And if I have buddies and stuff who are high up in the achievement and motivational game, this kind of thing in America, California and stuff like that. And they will all say the same. It's really not about where you're at now. It's about, are you willing to take practical, intelligent steps to get where you want to go? And just keep on going and you'll fucking get there, man. There's really nothing on the outside really stopping anyone on this planet, It's just that we kind of Yeah, got to stop being lazy in the evenings. Yeah, me too. Sometimes, me too. A bit of lazing around's okay. Just got to make sure I've done what I want to do in the day. I've got to make sure I do done what I want to do in the day. I also like a bit of guitar. I learned jazz guitar a bit myself when I was a busker. I had this buddy living in this squat I was in called, I won't say his name, but Italian guy, terminal heroin addict, huge heroin addict, but brilliant jazz saxophonist. And we thought, well, I'm just playing these crappy punk songs on the subway and earning small amounts of money with my mate. Maybe we can just, I learn a few jazz classics, and this guy can play the sax alongside them, you know, because for about, you know, he'd take his heroin and then for a few hours he'd be gouged for a little bit. Then for a few hours he was really straight and coherent, an amazing sax player, you know. So we'd go down there, I'd have my guitar, still looking a bit like a punk, but I'd be playing all these Mickey Baker jazz chords, minor sevenths, and I had to learn these jazz classics like, you know, Take Five and stuff like this. The Girl from Ipanema or something, you know, and I'd be sitting strumming this stuff away, and he'd be playing his sax, and we'd earn a fucking fortune, man. It was bloody great. So that was my experience of jazz guitar, and I got to really like it, you know. All these old black guys that had learned jazz, had developed jazz guitar, you know, and I thought, fucking hell, these guys make some amazing sounds. It really opened my eyes up, you know. But my best tip personally is to find a way or a form of learning what you want that is enjoyable to you, even if it isn't the fastest way to learn the skill. It makes it easier to get to. Yeah, that's a good tip as well, hey? That's a good tip as well. Yeah. Yeah, you got to get turned on to something, you know. Get turned on to something. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult. For a while I was convinced I was gonna DJ as well, you know. I was running workshops, I'm doing the therapy stuff, do my YouTube channel. I thought, I'm going to fucking DJ as well, you know, because I love music, and I'm just going to DJ. So I bought some DJ stuff, you know, some old, what have I got up there? I've got my old Tractor Control 2. But then I realized at some point I didn't really have enough desire for it, you know. Some of my mates were really good DJs, and I didn't really have enough desire for it, you know. And I was actually taking on a little too much. And in reality, I just wanted to focus on the therapy and the workshops and what I was doing. That was where I was getting to. And so I kind of dropped the whole DJ thing, getting a bit old to be David Guetta anyway. But that was a learning for me as well, just to get kind of focused on what I really wanted to do, and just work at being the best at that, just being the best at that. Okay, guys, got a few more minutes. If anyone's got a question, then do feel free to put it out. A lot of people, like I say, listen to the stream and later on, and then, you know, maybe your question really helps someone else big time, you know. So don't be too shy. Don't be too shy. Right, I used to do DJ, make electronic music. Need to get back in that as well. Kids distract me. Something to, wow, yeah, you've got kids, man. Yeah, that must be a major distraction. I don't have any kids, so I kind of, it allows me to stay as a bit of a big kid at times as well. But yeah, it can be incredible, hey. A buddy of mine, and you never know what's going to happen with it. You know, a friend of mine in Hove, he was like, he was making, you know, electronic music back in the 80s, you know, this guy with his brother, and they made 2 albums and they just tanked completely, never got anywhere, no one heard of them. 25 years later, some big shot music producer in New York rang the guy up, you know, contacted him somehow and started saying, hey man, I love your music. You know, you want to come over here? I'm going to re-release these albums and stuff. The music producer thought he'd be talking to some 22-year-old, and the guy said, well, I'm 62 now. And but they re-released the music anyway, and it sold a load, you know. You never know what the fuck's going to happen, you know. You never fucking know. But you know, music can be really, it's just so satisfying, you know. I think if my life had gone a bit different way, I could have been a musician, you know. But I didn't practice hard enough, and I got into other stuff. Child mode, having a mummy issue, didn't get the love and nurturing as a kid, and then this can project into my adult dating life and relationships. Yeah, for sure, you know. And then sometimes what it creates is like a kind of neediness, and then a desire to hide the neediness, you know. This is something a lot of people go through. A lot of people go through. Dum, dum, dum. And of course, somewhere, you know, it's just starting to be. I mean, it can be like a life issue, you know, this. But you've just got to be honest at some point about your needs, and and all of that. You know, we kind of learn somewhere, you know, as adolescents, that it's like the least cool thing is to be needy in any way, you know, and it can be so traumatizing, that phase of adolescence, for people to submerge it, and then they never really have such a satisfying life, I guess. Thank you for putting that out. Recently, I read somewhere that you shouldn't think about your aims, but with what you are ready to put up with, because every day, every sphere has its own drawbacks. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of people who have a lot of theories about these kind of things, and it's not totally my area. You know, I work with the blocks in the body a lot, but I do, you know, basic motivational coaching and accountability coaching and stuff like that, for sure. I mean, everyone does accountability coaching these days. Hey, you can get 10 a penny, basically. But there's a lot of different theories, and you just got to find out what works for you to create a satisfying life for you. Should everyone do bio? Trauma or no trauma? Doctors talk about trauma but know very little about it. I mean, should everyone do bio? I mean, you can't really force people, can you? You know, it's like, for a while I used to think everyone should be forced to do therapy. Just make them do it, you know. But of course, when you work as a therapist, you know, sometimes I get guys come to my workshops, and there's like an opening circle, and they're talking about why, each individual's talking about why they come to this workshop, and the guy pipes up with, well, my wife's told me if I don't come to this workshop, she's going to leave me, so I'm here, I guess. You know, and you think, well, great, you know, because you've got to be motivated as well inside to want to change. But yeah, it would be great if everyone was doing bio. Certainly the planet would be a lot healthier, and our relationships and sex lives would be a lot better. Does this naturally shift? Can we fill that gap within? Yes, we can fill the gap within. All the gaps just need to be filled with awareness, you know. The gap is usually, it's like a holding over a primal feeling that's held inside, you know. And the neediness is unattractive, which can pile on, and rejection worsens it. Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of people, this is the story of their adolescence, feeling needy, getting rejected, getting negatively marginalized, learning to hide the neediness, then having some kind of success, but that needy child inside is still freaking out, you know. Somewhere you have to allow the feelings underneath it all to start to come out, and then you're no longer so needy, and you realize, hey, I'm okay on my own, and I can invite partners into that space, you know. But you can't kind of fake it, you know. You have to clear the stuff out from the inside, or it'll just keep coming. Yeah, it's a difficult one, you know. It's a difficult one for people, you know. Neediness, very difficult. It's often seen, particularly in men, as an unattractive quality, and so you know, guys just learn to hide it. They just learn to hide it. I have a desire for bioenergetics, but I know isn't going to go away. I'd love to come to one day instruct it in Canada, but I'm not sure where to go to learn it more in depth. I mean, that's a great question, and the truth is, you know, is that there is not really any trainings around these days. I know the old Alexander Lowen School, which I think is still active in Canada and America, but probably very much slightly active. Probably quite a lot of old people, I should think. You know, used to do some level of training, and you know, there used to be Reiki and character analysis and all this kind of thing, and working out if you were a masochist or whatever, a rigid or oral type from your body position and stuff, and things like this, you know, which are okay. But I think the reality is that you just need to get as much experience as you can. And if you want to lead groups in particular, then, you know, you need group room experience, you know, group therapy, stuff like that, the most intense stuff you can handle that you can find, you know, and then you just start to take it out on your own. In reality, that's what I did. I had no training in bioenergetics. I just did shit tons of bioenergetics, and I did fucking loads of group therapy, you know, so to the point where I was used to, you know, my front room, you know, could be like, you know, 50 people screaming and shouting and freaking out, and you know, it wouldn't really bother me particularly. You know, I was so acclimatized to being in that zone and then holding that space. You know, it was relatively easy for me to start to hold bioenergetics because it wasn't so much screaming and shouting and freaking out. But you just need to throw yourself into the work and work with some teachers, have a look around. There's still, I think there's more likely to be more one-to-one bioenergetics practitioners around, and try and get it isn't easy, is the bottom line. It ain't easy. It ain't easy, you know. It is a challenge, but hopefully you're the kind of guy who's up for a challenge, and when you're that kind of guy, you will get there, you know. So, you know, I'm hopeful once I get my book more together, and then soon I'm going to be starting to teach a bit here anyway for people how to do it at Osho Leela, as part of a training of team leader program that I'm running. And you know, that will hopefully manifest at some point into a course that people can come and do, because people ask me all the time, how can I learn to teach bio? You know, and I don't have a good enough answer for them yet, unfortunately. Back to my Oscar is last. Yeah, that's very popular these days. You know, and of course you can go on training courses to learn how to give that and stuff. Yeah, I'm writing my book on bio. I'm kind of getting it together, and bit by bit, and then I have to get someone to do some illustrations and stuff like that. But it is happening, albeit a little bit slowly. But at the same time, I'm still learning and developing stuff myself. So, but the good thing about a book is you can produce one edition, then you can produce a second edition next year and add some things in and fiddle with it. You just need to get the first one on. Yeah, I know a lot of people say to me they want to do a course on it, you know, but as far as I'm aware, there aren't really any courses, you know. There's big groups that go on like 2-week intensives down over in Brazil at the Namaste Center with Milan and Pavita and stuff like that. But, you know, finally you have to really, I mean, the thing with it is as well, you know, you learn it, but then you've got to develop a side of yourself which is outgoing and wants to take risks. Because at the end of the day, you know, if I look at the number of people I know who did, say, yoga teacher trainings, you know, they go over to India, do loads of yoga, do a yoga teacher training, pay $2,000 for it or whatever, you know, there must be 20 times, 30 times, 40, 50 times more people who've done those trainings than actually end up teaching. Because when it comes to really teaching something, you've got to get out there and you've got to push yourself out there into the world, and you've got to kind of develop a personality or a teaching personality, you know, it doesn't be totally fake, but just something where you can really reach people and start to motivate and move people, you know. And that's the biggest part of being a teacher in many ways. And maybe ideally in the world, it shouldn't be like that, but that is how it is these days, you know. So if you want to be a teacher, and even if you haven't done a course on bio yet, and there isn't a course on bio, the thing to do is to get involved with similar stuff, I think, you know, in the gym, in yoga, in whatever, and, you know, maybe teach that a bit or something like that, you know, or just learn how to put yourself out, how to lead a workout, you know. Certainly for the way I teach anyway, it's a little bit like a workout anyway, you know, if I'm leading a group. So you will need a lot. If you want to lead groups, you will need experience in just holding groups and all the group dynamics that go on, you know, people trying to undermine you, or all the little dramas that happen in the group, and how to come across in a way that you diffuse that kind of tension and can create an environment of trust around you in the group room. So all that stuff, you know, you can work on before you actually learn a technique. And then any technique that you do learn to teach, you'll be able to teach it excellent, you know. Half of it is marketing and half of it is holding space. And then the rest is knowing the actual technique, you know. So those are, in reality, maybe that's a little dispiriting to hear sometimes, but that is the truth of how, you know, therapy in the modern world works. You know, it is the truth. You know, you need to be able to get out there and reach people. And then you also need to be able to hold space in a way that is clear for people and they feel good and safe to trust you. And then you will be successful with whatever you are teaching. If you can cover those two poles, you know. And sometimes it almost doesn't even matter what you teach. That seems a bit funny, you know, but if you hold the space in the right way, you know, that's a big part of it. I learned, you know, sometimes being invited to teach at festivals, but not, you know, it wasn't a festival where I could teach anything really full on and get everyone screaming and shouting and doing stuff like that. But, you know, I learned, you know, to hold even the gentlest meditations or whatever in a certain way that people will come up to me afterwards and say, fucking hell, that was life transforming. You know, a lot of it is around how you hold the space. So, you know, if you want to be a teacher or workshop leader, just start practicing with something that you can do, and then slowly you build the techniques into that. You know, that is my advice. You know, I haven't really thought about it much, so thank you for asking that, because that's what it comes down to. You know, can you get yourself out there and market yourself, and then can you hold the space? What you see around the scene is a lot of therapists are very good at holding space, but hopeless at marketing. In today's world, they just don't get clients. And then a lot of other therapists are really good at marketing, you know, and they look really great. But when you go to their workshops, you think, God, what a fucking disaster, you know. So it's like you've got to slowly develop. You've got to slowly develop both sides of that. Both sides of that. Let's just check the final questions. Then I got to head off. Thanks for the answers and keep it. I really appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you. That's really sweet. You put that out. Someone said trauma is a bit like Ghostbusters. Yeah, could be a bit like that. I find myself a shade of who I once was. Little things I used to find easy have become hard. How do I find myself again? Well, you know, in reality, and I don't know you personally, I don't think, but when we find something easier and then later it becomes a bit like more hard, probably the way we were doing it before was a bit fake, you know? So you got to look, is that true? You know, was I just a bit fake before and then I had this fake personality and I could get my needs met, and now, you know, some of the underlying feelings that the fake personality was holding down are coming up. And so you just have to keep moving forwards. You just have to keep moving forwards. Keep doing the bioenergetics, you know. I know a lot of guys in the pickup scene and dating scene, you know, and they go through similar stuff. They learn these techniques to pick up women, you know, how to kind of engage with them and talk to them. But they create a fake personality to do that. And it doesn't really serve them in the long run. I know guys like this, you know, really, even guys who are teaching pickup, you know, go through this big time, you know, go through it. They learn a technique, which they create this fake persona, this front, you know, and it works to get women interested in them. They feel like a rock star. Sometimes they can't always perform so well sexually because the inner awareness isn't there. But, you know, that's it. Yeah, man, that's it, you know. I found myself being way too nice before, and now I'm trying to be more grounded. That's it, man. You know, sounds to me like you're on a good journey, and you just need to stick with it. You know, don't put yourself down. Don't get too dispirited. You just slowly keep moving forwards, taking risks and practicing, you know, and it will happen. Okay, guys, I've got to head off. It's 7 o'clock. Thanks very much for tuning in and being a part of this stream, and keep doing the bio. Hopefully I should be back next Thursday as far as I know. Yeah, I should be. Okay. See you guys. Speak to you later.